2 minutes after 4. This is the City of Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission regular meeting for Wednesday, March 28th. We'll start with roll call. Identify if you're present. Cheryl Caldwell.
Here.
Mark Nelson.
Here.
Steve Corey. Here. Carrie Glenn.
Here.
Dave Neal.
Here.
Megan Larson.
Here.
Andrea Pogue.
Here.
Scott Walters. Victoria Madrigal.
She's absent, but maybe she'll be able to come late. I'm not sure.
Ex officio members, Councilwoman Genesis Milan.
Here.
And Rochelle Klein. Here. Quorum being present, we will go ahead and move on to consideration of the agenda. The agenda was sent out by email beforehand. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. Are there any comments or motions?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the agenda as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the February 28th meeting. In glancing over them, I see two corrections. First off, the meeting was called to order at 4:05. And second off, I would suggest the addition for approval of the minutes, a line that says approval of the February 1st meeting minutes was passed by voice vote.
Were those handed out? Were those handed out, those minutes?
Yes, I think they were on.
Emailed, but not
Oh,
handled.
I'm sorry, they were emailed.
Emailed, so
Now, members of the commission, I certainly would love to go ahead and have the details on who moved and seconded, but my memory's not that good. So certainly, since we don't have written copy in front of us, I would go ahead and defer to the commission's preference if they would like to go ahead and have those corrections and updates put together, and we'll just take care of these at the next meeting, or if you want to move forward, of course, that would be okay. I think I'm seeing agreement to go ahead and defer those to the next meeting.
Mr. Chair, I just had one to add. Under old business, the sentence doesn't read super clearly unless it's been corrected since. Recycling fund not to exceed $12,000 with intent to find other funding sources. Intending or something.
Mr. Chair, if everyone would, who has a change, would email it to me, I will work with the clerk to get the drafted minutes updated and brought back next month.
Without objection from the commission, thank you, Andrea, for taking that responsibility. If you do have further changes, please email them to Andrea. Next on the agenda is old business. Community Recycling Fund, status update on FY18 CRFP projects. I think first we'll start with the Parks Department presentation. Mike, if you'd come forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to give you an update on our recycling fund purchase of litter receptacles for the new park in South Meridian. Really, I don't have much of an update, so I'll be brief. Right now, we're going through the city's procurement requirements as far as bidding and getting a purchase order to a vendor so we can place the order. The park is currently under construction, so we're on schedule, and really that's the update at this time, and be happy to stand for questions and happy to be here monthly or as you need me to be here to keep you filled in. I think it's great to come and just talk about it and keep you guys informed, so I appreciate it.
Members of the commission, do you have any questions for Mike at this time?
I don't have any questions for Mike, but Carrie, when is the next report due?
June 27th.
Okay, Mike, so if you would note that down, June 27th is the next time under the program for recipients to bring back an update.
Perfect. I think I might be on vacation, but,
You could email
and
an update if you want to me or to
Okay.
Conrad or both of us, and we can make it.
perfect.
For you.
If I'm here, I'll be here, but I think that overlaps with a vacation, summer vacation. So,
Okay.
like I said, I'm happy to be here and, love to give you an update.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
The next item is the Meridian Library. Conrad.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for your time today. I am speaking on behalf of recipient Meridian Library District in Gretchen Cassatori. She was unable to make it today. Much like Parks and Rec, there's not a whole lot of news to report or show given the winter months. She did say that they were planning on really getting to work April next week, and there'll be a whole lot more to report come the next progress report due in late June. She did share with me some diagrams and plans of what they've come up with so far at this point. Things have, you could say, they're fine-tuning what their original concept idea, which was 3 months ago was just an idea. Now they have a little more for us to look at. Okay. Now you can see the graphic design there of the coloring and the library signage, and looks like a patio towards the back, and obviously the door in the front. Yeah. And we just have more specs there. And this looks like where they plan on placing the container. Looks like it's part of the drive-through at the school. And it'll be there in the hash out marks, surrounded by the red mark. And here's some pictures of what the furniture and insides will look like. Collapsible tables to maximize space when needed. Book return, that's mobile, it's on wheels. I assume they can put it outside during the day, during operating hours, and then bring it inside, so it'll be secure overnight. Mobile book organizers, comfy chairs, lots of colors. Creative style desks and chairs. And Eric Carl rug, the hungry caterpillar. So that's the update on the library. Nothing's in place yet, but again, starting next week, they'll start putting things together. Gretchen did mention that the expected expenses are changing, which is kind of what we assumed would happen. But the amount that they requested and were granted is still sufficient, and nothing will change on that end. And that's the report I have.
Members of the commission, any questions of Conrad?
Mr. Chair, I don't have questions, it's a comment. It's my understanding that the library district plans a ribbon cutting on May 25th to coincide with the date that the YMCA is doing the ribbon cutting on their facility at the same location. So I'm sure that's not set in stone since they haven't started yet, but just something to keep in mind. I'm sure the commission will be invited to.
Excellent.
I don't know how they're gonna have that ready, are they?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Larson, Gretchen did not share that with me. I assume if that is the case, then it's probably a soft date, but she did not make me aware of a May opening.
So, Mr. Chair, I would just have Conrad remind her that the next report needs to be on June 27th.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Pogue, she was one step ahead of me. She said she wouldn't be here at this one, but she would be at the June progress report. And I said, okay, well, I'll put that on my calendar.
Thank you.
Commissioners, further questions or comments? Thank you, Conrad.
Thank you.
Next is item A2, 2018 Recycle a Bicycle, and request for RFP. Cheryl, do you want to start, or?
Yes, after last month's meeting, SWAC meeting, I met with Rochelle, and we went through some of the things we needed, that we thought we needed. Get Out and Unplug is scheduled for May 5th, or at least the starts on May 5th, at Kleiner Park, and the bike, it'll be from 10 to 2. And we thought we would do only around 32 or so bikes. We're still gonna do where they go online and fill out forms expressing their need, or at least the reason they want a bike. And then I will call them all back, or the ones that we've designated, and that we can find bikes for, because we still have to go through a lot of bikes. What else? We're gonna need committee help. Last year, Andrea helped us go through the trash bins. And so if anybody could volunteer to go with us on the committee to meet, we can always let you know when we'll meet with Rochelle, whenever she can do it, and then we pick bikes. And then sometimes we have to pull seats and different tires and whatever they need to repair it. I think we have the 2 retired gentlemen that are going to help us this time, unpaid, as they, we're not going to be spending any money on that.
Yes.
Just the parts that they need to fix the bikes, whatever, like new inner tube tires, brakes, what other things, slime, always slime. St. Luke's, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rochelle.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. St. Luke's will hand out helmets again. And I think we're still going to ask the city council for $500 to help towards the costs of the supplies we need to repair the bikes. And it's got to go pretty soon if it's May 5th.
Right.
Right. Go ahead, Michelle. What else?
So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, yes, Cheryl and I met, and we talked about part of the expense that, just by way of history, last year we had a volunteer who volunteered like 30 seconds and then charged us $800 for the rest of his time. So that came as a surprise. So this year we're not, we have like basically staff volunteers that have worked year round. We'll have fewer repairs on bikes because we've already been, Valley Regional Transit has been really generous in giving us a bay at their Caldwell facility. So I think we have a number of bikes in there that are pretty ready to go. But the expense this year, there are a couple things. We being Cheryl and I thought this would be a good idea to get a 5-gallon bucket of slime. We ran into a lot of customers or people last year who said they parked their bike and they wanted a new bike because they had a flat back tire, for example, and they didn't know how to change a back tire. And so we thought if we bring slime to the event and encourage people to bring their bikes with flats, we could fix flats there, meaning we just need to buy the 5-gallon bucket of slime and the pump, and then there's like a little tool to take the stem out of the tires. If we got those supplies, as well as some patch kits for bigger issues and some brakes. Like some of the brakes are just hardened and they just need new brakes, but those are pretty easy things to fix on the fly on site, and we would just need to stock up on those things. And we don't have any idea how many people would bring bikes, even bikes with regularly like working tires could come and just get slime for getting ready for the season. So we thought that would be a real value add, but that's like, at least the Dirt Dart guy last year charged us $105 for the bucket of slime, and then he had that pump tool and then the stem removal tool. So we just need to get that, as well as some patches and some brakes and things like that. So
Rochelle got really good at slime. At slime.
I know. And so we're pretty excited. The labor on our side is going to be much smaller. We now have a pretty good routine where we keep a store of bikes for all ages and sizes and types out in Caldwell. So
Won't have to go through those.
I don't think so. I know we go through those bikes on a daily basis now. We don't have a big store of like 300 bikes. It was a safety issue, so I'm over that. But we do have plenty of bikes, and any supplies that we buy for this event that don't get used at this event, we do now have Meridian Middle that we work with, and Crossroads is new to us, and we're just getting ready for our first event with them. And those are really meaningful events, and those are people who've been selected by school counselors or school nurses. And I think I've shown some pictures before, but they were pretty amazing. Like over half the kids were not with even a custodial parent. So we wound up giving the child a bike and then their foster parent a bike so they could have someone to ride with. And I don't know if Safe Routes to School, did we talk to them about coming to this? Safe Routes to School is great because they come and they give younger riders road rules. Like they talk about, they'll give them like a bell and some reflectors, like some lights, not lights to help them see, but lights to help cars see them. Does that make sense? And so Safe Routes to School has been a good partner at these different outreach events. And it might be worth reaching out to them too to see if they can come and just give some simple road rules. So,
We talked about giving out locks.
locks,
Too.
yeah.
But I priced those, and I think it came to like $90 or
Yeah, they're about $6
a piece.
a piece, and that's the lock attached to the cable. And what we found is, at least the recipients that we gave them to at Meridian Middle and at Crossroads too, they asked for they're not combination locks, they're word locks. So it was kind of funny, like the first one I picked up, the combination was toes, but you could spell a whole bunch of different words, but just it's easier for kids to remember a single word than a combination. Especially they said during the winter when they park their bike for a while and they have to come back out and remember what that combo is. So I think those are about $6
Yeah,
a piece.
so we'll see.
So we'll see if we can get some donated too, so.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Rochelle, were you able to contact the individual who had expressed interest in making a $1,000 donation to the program?
I have not yet, so I will do that
Okay.
today. Yes.
Also, Cheryl, would you and Rochelle be available to present the request for funding next week to City Council if I get it on the agenda?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. I don't know if Rochelle is.
What time is that? Is the council meeting next
That,
week?
wouldn't that be at 6?
Is it at 6 o'clock? Okay, sometimes they're in the afternoon, I just wasn't sure.
On a Wednesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday at 6, okay. The 3rd, okay.
At the end of the agenda.
No. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I don't think we need a motion from this body because we have previously indicated that we wanted to move forward with this funding request for $500 from the Community Recycling Fund. But if we want, Carrie, do you feel that we need to make a current motion for that or not?
I think that is the protocol because we are making a recommendation to ask for
money?
authority.
Okay. Cheryl, do you want to make that motion?
I'd like to make the motion that the SWAC, the body of SWAC, approve the request to the City Council for $500 towards the, Get Out and Unplug project for the bikes.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Caldwell, can we leave it a little broader, or do you want it just for that? Can we say for recycled bicycle? Are you interested in carrying funding beyond this to like Crossroads and Meridian Middle, or do you want it just for this specific event? Maybe it is just for this. I just want to make sure that if it's just for this event, that we store the stuff until next year and we just use stuff for this event.
Well, I was thinking, and if there's more, we could get the locks.
Oh.
Just saying. So my motion still stands.
And I would just add that it's for Recycle a Bicycle. That's the name of this
Okay.
program.
Recycle bicycle.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we go ahead and recommend to City Council to go ahead and allow for the expenditure of $500 for the Recycle a Bicycle program. Is there further comment or question on the motion? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Thank you. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is 5B Residential Recycling Program. Item 1, 2018 Trash or Treasure Program update. Brett Baranko, would you come up here and catch us up to date?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I appreciate you allowing me to come and speak to you, to update you on what Trash or Treasure 2018 is going to be all about. Last year, we did have 3 participating HOAs in the northern neighborhood of Meridian, and we did ask 2 of the 3 to participate once again for 2018, and they happily agreed. We also, in that area, due to one of the HOAs that were participating, another HOA has asked that they participate as well, so we are trying to get the confirmation on that. We also were in the same area, have another HOA. And then down in the south portion, a neighborhood in Meridian, we have 2 more HOAs that are going to be participating. So that will be 5 confirmed, hopefully 6 HOAs that will be participating. We did work on a few of the advertisements that are going to be for Trash or Treasure, with one of them being made by, or worked on by Scott Walters. And excuse me for one moment. I will add in my zip drive.
Mr. Chair, if I could just take this pause to just fill in a little more detail on Recycle a Bicycle. So we worked with Renee White in Parks. She has the registration page open today. And it went live because Casey Emery from the mayor's office has already gotten press interest in the story and is running with some of positive,
The press release did go out today.
yeah. So I wanted to let you guys know that.
All right, thank you for your patience with this. This is going to be the small email flyer that will be going out fairly shortly. We discussed as the subcommittee that Wednesday, April 4th, we will direct the HOAs to send out via email to their email lists and get kind of a save to date. I want to express that these 3 items I'm going to be showing you are rough drafts. We're very close to a finalized product, but we have been working out corrections that need to be made on them. We also have the full page flyer. We will have an electronic version that will be sent out by the HOA boards to their members on the 18th, 25th, and 2nd of May. We will also allow them the opportunity to have a physical flyer produced, and Republic Services will be allowing us to have that expense put on them. And it just states who's involved, what it's about, and when. And again, we do have a few edits that we will be doing on this. And also, we have produced another video. It's a little bit different from last year, if you recall, but we do feel with it'll be attached via hyperlink whenever we send out these flyers, and hopefully it will help spread out the word. So I will be playing this for you. We might have to do without the music, but it's a pretty little jingle, so just imagine. Ukulele.
I can kind of hear it.
There's sound on here. It's got a really cute tune. You could probably just barely hear a tiny bit of it. Is that it? Oh. Oh, shoot, okay. Okay.
It's mostly reading anyway.
Just a note, as a subcommittee, we did decide to remove this portion of the slide. And there you have it. Hopefully this will instruct a little more than the video last time. We did want to, we learned from a few mistakes that were brought to our attention via the survey at the end of last year. So some, again, adjustments have been made to the video. And Republic Services is doing an update to their spring cleanup flyer. And I believe that they're going to be trying to promote that a little bit more to get that service a little more known this year. They will be also helping us again with more vertical banners. So we are very appreciative of Republic Services. And again, the date will be the 5th and 6th of May, spring cleanup happening the week after. And with that said, I would like to ask if you could possibly vote for me to move forward to City Council. Thank you very much.
Members of the commission, any questions for Brett at this time or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just an ex officio member, but I just have to commend Brett for the amount of work he's put into this. This was really super successful. I have to admit, I was a huge skeptic at first. I thought this is going to be a disaster, and it actually turned out fabulously, and people loved it. And I love that it's like more than doubling in size this year, and I hope to see this go citywide. I think it's a fantastic idea, and people really like it, and it's a great way to reduce waste and reuse things. So it really fits into what our mission is. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you very much for your help.
I just had one question. So there was some feedback or some confusion last year on what to leave out and what not to, or when to bring it in. I didn't catch whether we.
Some of the feedback was, well, they were upset that some people were not participating, yet they were. So that hence why we cut one of the HOAs out for this year, just to kind of move forward and start where it was happening really fresh in the other two neighborhoods. There was a few thoughts that possibly good enough products like donatable items were being sent to the trash because of it, because no one was picking them up, but they were good enough. So that's why we made in the video that, hey, you can put it out for free, but if it's good enough, please make sure you donate. Because, again, the whole purpose of this is to reuse what can't be reused. So.
Well, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Nelson, I think too, we learned on the trash side, people who didn't have their stuff collected last year just pushed their loose stuff to the curb, which was, we don't have any capability to just like sweep up curbs. So we made an effort this year to say stuff still needs to be properly placed out. So it needs to be tied in bundles or put in carts or put in cans. It is spring cleanup, but like loose clothing and things like that, we don't have any way to pick those up. So we did stress this year that they just have to prepare everything to be collected by us.
And that was also mentioned in the video, put into the your proper receptacle if it's still left out.
Mr. Chair, yeah, we realized we need to beef up the spring cleanup advertising of that program. So, Carrie, one question I have for you, as Rochelle is finalizing the flyer for this year, is it too late, or what would be the drop dead date for her to get the material to be put in the April 5th and 20th bills?
Hard copies would need to be delivered to AutoSort at least by the 2nd, which is
Monday.
next week.
Next week, that's okay. I think I have a completed file I got back, so I just have to see how quickly I can get it printed. I'll send it to you. I think some of the folks here have the final copy, and or I'll send it out. I'll send it to you, and if you guys approve, then we can see about getting it printed and inserted really quickly at AutoSort. So,
great. So Rochelle, I would just recommend including Carrie, Casey, and myself.
Okay.
And then we know we have to get it to you in order, back to you in order to get it to Carrie, I guess, by the 2nd. Okay.
Members of the commission, any motions?
I actually did have a quick question real quick. This year, when we talked to the HOAs, when you reached out to the HOAs, were we able to confirm that this was not going to be their annual subdivision yard sale? That was part of the confusion. I think some of the people were trying to do yard sales, some of the people so there was some conflict as to who was selling their stuff and who was just putting it out for trash to treasure.
Andrea, do you recall if we spoke anything about that? No. So I can definitely, when I will be communicating with these HOAs, so I can definitely ask and just get that, because I do recall that being a slight issue as well.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brett. I think what you're talking about is there were people that wanted to have their garage sale first and then donate what didn't sell. And so I know that I ran into one situation where people were having a yard sale, but they weren't doing it as participation in Trash or Treasure. They were just having a garage sale the same day, and then they were on Saturday, and then they were going to put their stuff out on Sunday, I think. So I don't think anybody, as far as I remember, people didn't think that it was a garage sale or their annual garage sale. They were just hoping that they could do their garage sale first, and so they donate what didn't sell.
So then with one of those, if it's truly donatable, then they'll just have to miss out on that aspect of Trash or Treasure. But of course, you know, if they look in their backyard, I'm sure they could find something broken that they think that they need to get rid of. So I think they could still use the service.
Members of the commission, any motions?
Make a motion that Brett proceed to present the Trash or Treasure 2018 program to City Council next week.
It's been moved and seconded that Brett present the Trash or Treasures program to the City Council. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Andrea, you'll go ahead and get that on the agenda and then tell us when we need to be there.
Yeah. I think I will put under SWAC reports, so it's one agenda item or presentation, you know, however, it'll be in one place for back-to-back presentations, and if you just both, you know, I think they're both small requests, small presentations, you know, 5 minutes each, maybe, and in and out. Hopefully that'll work. I knew Jensen. Okay. Thanks, Brett.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Mr. Chair,
Genesis.
so I know you're past the bicycle part, but I was able to find some bicycle locks. They're only 2 feet long, but they're cable-coated locks with a combination lock for $1.90 a piece if you buy in bulk on Amazon. So nothing fancy, but if you're giving them away for free, it's like $91 for 48 of them. Amazon. Free shipping, I'm pretty sure, too.
Thank you. Next item, 5B2, the Dow Chemical Orange Bag Program, an update. We do have the request pending to join Boise in the program. As far as I know, we've not received any response to that request at this time,
The city has not.
and Andrea confirms that. I don't think we have anything more to add. Rochelle, you look like you have
I
something to
do,
add.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Pogue. I was with Dow this last weekend, and I think they were responding to Garden City Eagle, and they brought up what I think they're just food for thought. What it looks like they're going to propose to the city of Meridian is a minimum of 5,000 participants, which is that was the threshold. So they said that was what I think you're going to see that coming back. So I don't know if that'll come back through the city of Boise or it'll come back directly from Dow, but it was a 5,000 household minimum that they wanted to see participate or have an option to participate in this program. And if it's any indication of interest, Dave, he just disappeared. Dave Fisher and I were at Garden City on Monday night when they addressed paper and and what they want to do with their recycling, and there were like right around 100 people that showed up to the city council meeting, and it was interesting. One of the council members there said, "How many of you are familiar with Boise's Orange Energy Bag Program?" Almost every hand in the audience went up, and the council member then asked how many people would be interested in participating in the program, whether it was subsidized or whether there was a fee, and like literally almost every person put their hand up. So it was surprising. Dave was there too. Commissioner Neal was there. I want to say it was like there were people on the wall and people sitting there. It was just a really crowded room, and there was a lot of interest. So if you're worried about finding 5,000 people, I think that probably wouldn't be the holdup with a city the size of Meridian, but that's just food for thought. So, but I did get indication from John Piper with Dow that it's going to be like a 5,000 household minimum that they want to see for participation. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and when would the smaller cities get to launch their programs?
So it sounds like Boise's program will be launching. They get their first bag shipped April 11th. They'll be coming like April, probably 5 days later, around the 15th, 16th, and then it's a 6-week rollout for Boise for each household. They've contracted with Impact Directories to deliver all those. And then as soon as they're done, then I think so it'd probably be, I would say 8 weeks after Boise launches probably. Garden City has a different strategy. They said that they would be placing them at the library because the library's open Saturdays, every Saturday, and then it's open early and late for people who work. So that's what they're thinking. And they're in a unique situation because the library is co-located at the same site as the city hall. So they're one and the same. So it makes it kind of easy for them. But they would not be delivering. So it would be people just coming as quickly as they wanted to pick them up at Garden City City Hall. And then I think Eagle would be after that. So,
Mr. Chair, and Rochelle, I forget, was it $8? Is that the estimate for the year's worth of bags?
I believe so. And we are not privy to any of the financial pieces of that, but that was what Dow said, between 7 and 8 is what Dow said. And so I would just say, if you're budgeting, I would go high and be surprised if it was lower. I don't have access to the actual numbers as far as that goes. Sorry.
Thanks, Rochelle. So, Mr. Chair, my thought would be that is more expensive than the Community Recycling Fund can afford. It's more than what we would propose. So we'll have to wait to hear back officially with Dow's.
Right. And the other thing they did mention is Keep America Beautiful will have the next round of grants available if you're interested in grant funding. April 3rd, they open up grants, and I think they're, again, $50,000 grants that will be available starting April 3rd, and I think that closes in June. If you wanted to do something larger, or if something, different than the 5,000 households.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Carrie.
not being at the meeting last month, I do see where it was approved for 12,000 not to exceed. Has that spending authority gone before City Council yet?
No, because we hadn't gotten permission to participate. That's what we're waiting for.
Okay. So is City Council aware that this is what we're trying to do?
I don't think so.
Mr. Chair, that's kind of what I was just gonna go with this. So we had 12,500, which was gonna cover how many bags? 2,500? 1,500. And they want us to do 5,000, but we don't have official confirmation on that.
Correct.
And I think
We can't get 5,000 from Boise. Could we if we wanted to?
from Boise. So on the ordering, so we just have to have the permission from Dow to roll into the Boise. Like Garden City has, they're opening it up to everybody. So that's why they have the authorization to opt in. So Garden City and Eagle are making it available to every citizen to opt in. So they're probably going to have that same number. So it's not a matter of just buying bags from Boise. There's still a data component, like they want to know how many people are participating and what the weight of the material is, and there's some other components.
How many are they buying?
I don't know. Probably, well, Garden City only has 4,800 households, so they're small, but Eagle has a pretty large number, so I think, I don't know the exact numbers.
Mr. Chair,
So-
so I guess my thought was, before you maybe nix this, or from what I recall, putting in for the grant, which is only like $5,000 anyway, we wouldn't be able to get started until October. In my opinion, I feel it would be worth bringing to the City Council for either direction, or either you have a proposal and ask the City Council to pick up the difference, or just go to the council for direction. But I think that they should probably be involved, and that's a pretty big decision, waiting a long time down the road to get started in this program. And if they decide we don't want to invest any money, then that's their call, because they're the ones that are going to be getting crap in the streets from everybody we run into.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the input. Yeah, we have promised City Council that we would bring back a report and recommendation regarding this orange bag program. We've just been waiting to hear back from Dow, because it's not our decision. We have to be invited. And it sounds like our proposal is going to be countered, which then we can bring to city council. So, you know, that price per bags per household per year is, you know, whether it's 40,000 for 5,000 households, or if we look at 32,000 as the approximate number of households in Meridian, and city council would somehow figure out how to pay for that, that's $250,000 for 1 year. But we could seek direction to whether they want for the city to apply through the America the Beautiful, the applications that are going to be opened up for, I think it was 25,000. I thought it was 2 or 4 $25,000 grants that are going to be available this year, but I'm not positive.
It may be, and that will all be on the Keep America Beautiful
Correct.
website. Yeah, I'm not sure what they're.
Correct. So once again, if we get a response from Dow this week, let's say we could put it on the agenda for next week. Maybe we could just bring back Rochelle's report and update and give the city council that information, and then just say you could apply for a $25,000 grant, which, you know, you then have to figure out how you want to run it, whether you want to limit it 5,000 households and find the money to make up the difference, or open it to the city and make up the money somehow.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman.
I guess initially what I was thinking was making it 5,000, the city, between the two groups pay for as a pilot program. Oh, I mean, they obviously then have the option of including all households. I have a hard time seeing them going that way and paying for all of it. There's also the option of having the residents pay for it. I don't think next week is a good time to be on the agenda, because I can see this issue, I can actually see this item taking a good half hour, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour we have 6 individual opinions. And I'm expecting that our council meeting will go past midnight, maybe 2 a.m. as it is. So maybe the next week. The workshop would probably be a better time for this discussion. Though we have a very busy workshop too. So I don't know. Anyway.
Mr.
I don't know if there's a hurry.
Chairman and Commissioner Pogue, I know that Dow will be in town on April 17th and 18th. And so we have meetings scheduled with them both those days. And so there may be an opportunity for us to, you know, have them come in and answer questions, or, you know, as far as, you know, even if you open it up and maybe, you know, wanted to run it as a pilot and allowed people to opt in and pay the $7 or $8 on their own, you might hit that $5,000 mark on a pilot level with just, you know, without a lot of commitment on council's part, by just making it available to people who want to just opt in. And that's a thought too. You might hit that 5,000 household mark.
So, Mr. Chair,
Councilman.
17th is a meeting. If we could get them to come, I don't know if there's an idea, if they would be interested, but have them come, have it on that agenda on the 17th, and have them
early or late?
Late, 6 o'clock. But if you might be able to get them on first, or
Yeah, if they're on first, I think they have a dinner meeting. I know that they've got other stakeholders that they're meeting with, but I think they could, I know that they would be happy to come before you and answer questions.
council.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
from the council.
Carrie.
Rochelle, going back to the schedule, so even if I'm just trying to put it all in perspective. It sounds like Boise is Boise's already running with it. Garden City is now jumping on board, Eagle is jumping on board, but even then, they're still sequential. So if Boise launches in April, it takes 8 weeks, then Garden City, then Eagle, then us. We're still talking November, December. This isn't a time crunch.
Mr. Chairman and Carrie, actually, I think once Boise gets their big rollout done, it's just a drop ship to. For Eagle and Garden City, it'd just be a drop ship to City Hall, and then they're not taking on this big rollout. They're just going to have people come and pick them up.
Okay.
And so it would be much faster. Like those guys may even go back to back, because the way the manufacturing of the bags is occurring, this is a unique size. It's a 13-gallon size, so historically, there's been an 8-gallon and then a larger commercial 30, I think, gallon. And so this is a unique size, so they're making the entire run at once, and then they're going to ship at once. So it's just a matter of rolling out Boise first, and then the upside of that is that Boise, I know that when we were in Omaha last week, Dow and Reynolds and the city of Omaha representatives said that the outreach materials for Boise are very comprehensive, and so they even said, wow, whoever starts, this is a pretty well put together package. So the nice thing for anybody who follows them is this is a package that Boise's just gonna ship to any city who wants it. So that's good for the rest of us who.
As long as everybody wants the same package.
Yeah, I mean, it's, right, you mean for the educational materials?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just
And
set
well,
for
and
like
what
to
goes in
swap out
and
a
what
brand, a city brand. What's that?
And what goes in and what doesn't, because even the guy from Dow says it's all customizable for your city. Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
that's true.
Commissioners, additional questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, Rochelle, Eagle and Garden City have committed to buying how many bags?
I don't actually know the number of bags, so they're making it available to all residents. And I have to get confirmation from Eagle. I know that they've had those discussions, and it looks like that's the case, but I haven't heard the definitive vote from Eagle. They're going to make it available to all residents. And so Garden City's small. I mean, they're 4,800 households, so.
So Dow's not requiring them to buy 5,000 bags? So-
Yeah, they would have a surplus, like, right, so because they're so small, they're gonna make it available to every single household, though. And same with Eagle. Eagle is not,
No, I understand that, but I'm just wondering, they're buying a drop ship that contains X number of bags. I'm sure they're not expecting every household to participate.
Right.
So they've committed to 1,000 bags.
no more than that. I would say, I don't know, do you have any, we don't have really any idea, but I would guess it's gonna be at least 2,500, if not more, for Garden.
Dow's decided that Meridian has to buy more because we're larger?
I think, yeah, and that's a question you can ask Dow. I think that was just because of the size of the city.
Some percentage of households.
So we did get a response back from Dow.
Well, that's what they told me, and I asked if I could share that, and the answer was yes. So that they're coming back with a formal letter, but that they had said that they wanted a minimum for each city, because it is a fair amount of work for them. They've got to collect data, and this is all part of their sustainability program, and so they've got to collect the data on the number of participants and then the weight of the material collected and gallons of oil, diesel produced. So it's a little bit of work on their side also, and they really want to make sure it succeeds. So they want to make sure there's a pretty good commitment from each city that opts in.
My last comment is I would reiterate my interest in having the participants purchase the bags. I think that is a better pilot, because long-term, 3-4 years from now, residents will be buying the bags themselves. This, I would expect, like Boise, even if we did a purchase of bags on behalf of the residents for the first year, in the future, they would buy their own, just like Boise's plan. So to get a better idea of who's willing to participate, you model the pilot to look very much like the program.
And maybe you set it up that if you get 5,000 people to opt in and buy the bags, then you go with it, and if you don't get 5,000 interested parties, you don't. And maybe there's something
That
along
would
those
give you a
lines.
good idea of what your participation is going to be longer
We
term.
have to think about, we could create a portal to track that.
I think we need to know the mysterious number of what 12 bags cost, because it's only a once-a-month collection, right?
It's every other week.
Oh, every other.
It's 12, it's 26 bags.
So what's the mystery? Like, do you think we can find out so that we can know how we're gonna market it to the households?
And I think the mystery isn't so much what the actual cost of the bags is. It was the bags plus the delivery mechanism. Like, there was a part of what, Boise's cost was delivering to every household, and then the design and the printing of the materials, and they had a lot of costs rolled into it. So to just buy the bags alone isn't really enough, because then people don't know how to fill them. So there is a printing and inserting component that goes with that. And so they've hired somebody to insert all the instructions. And so there's that too, just the printing. And so I can work on getting something much more specific, and I'll reach out to Dow saying, okay, if there's no delivery component, what would that look like? And then, they said between 7 and 8. And it really depends on how the city handles like
Well,
if you
ca-
print in-house or if you contract it out kind of thing, so.
Mr. Chair, can't we just ask Garden City and Eagle? People are coming to City Hall or the library to pick them up. Are they handing them a packet of educational materials?
Yes, they are. They will be getting educational materials with every single packet that's delivered at those two sites.
Mr. Chair,
Councilwoman.
the $8, this is really what I remember, and I remember that being the kit. So it includes the materials. It's the bags and the educational materials and the shipping to the drop site, to one site, and the shipping of the products to Salt Lake City. Yes. So that $8 encompasses all of that. And what Boise, I mean, maybe they spent some extra money on the design of the materials, which now we can just kind of take advantage of, but their extra cost is delivering them to every household. So they're mailing them or whatever they're doing. I'm pretty sure it's right around $8.
Well, that's how we came up with the 12,000, 1,500 times 8.
Yeah. And but that includes the kit, the
Yeah.
whole kit, not just
But
the
not delivered to
bags.
the household.
Right.
That's,
So we don't have to hire somebody to stuff them, because when they come and pick them up, we just hand them, here's your kit, here's your paper and here's your bags. So it doesn't, I'm just saying, it doesn't seem like there should be any additional expense to us.
if we didn't deliver them.
Right, absolutely.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm developing the sense that this now isn't something SWAC should tackle. I think the motion I would like, that I'm starting to formulate, is that we would recommend that maybe environmental programs in Public Works takes it on as a program. They'd have a department has the resources to do the outreach, to try and advertise it and find 5,000 households interested in doing it. They can coordinate with Republic Services and Dow to develop the monetary cost and bring it forward to City Council at the right time. I mean, this body, we only meet once a month. If a part of the department's analysis would be in creating this program, to apply for a $25,000 grant, April 3rd, if it opens, we'd have to start working on that. I don't know when that window would close, but I think the sooner SWAC maybe discharges our duty. We tried. It sounds like our proposal isn't acceptable to Dow. That's what the Community Recycling Fund program could have afforded, so that we weren't going to have to ask for any funding from City Council. To me, this is getting where I know there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of interest in the public. There's a lot of interest that the electeds want to hear back about the status of this program and what Meridian can or can't do with it. We could maybe at the workshop give a presentation, maybe SWAC in conjunction with the Public Works Department maybe, and update and get direction. But to me, I'm just feeling for this body, it's maybe time to give it back to the city to run with, if it's going to grow to 5,000 or more households.
Members of the commission, additional comments? Yes.
Are we in a position to offload to resources inside the city? I don't know what that bar is. What's our role then? Is we've identified a potential program, done some due diligence to collect information, and now we've reached a point where between the time frame, and we still don't have an official document back from Dow, so we're kind of anticipating what they're going to tell us.
Right. And I can also ask them today if they, I know that the next council meeting sounds really busy, and maybe even the next one after that, but I'm sure that they'd be willing to come to the council meeting on April 17th at 6 p.m. and present and walk council through directly and answer all those questions directly, because I feel like I have just enough information to be dangerous, but not enough to help anybody make an educated decision. So I'm happy to ask them. I know they're in town. I know that they are more than willing to answer council's questions if you want, to set them up on
Well, Rochelle, that's what I'm agreeing. I don't want SWAC to be charged with this responsibility to report back to city council and not do that, but have Dal show up independent. I'm saying maybe the cleaner thing, maybe, would just be for SWAC to move today on a certain way. I think we know enough to do a small report back that, if you take $8 a bag, that's $250,000 if the city wants to subsidize it citywide, or we do what Dal seems to want to say is 5,000, and we could opt in, but that has to be funded somehow, and so maybe we have households, maybe that's our recommendation, but somebody has to run that, and I don't think this body has the resources. I'm saying an internal department would have to do that outreach and coordinate the volunteer pickup of the bags and work with the stakeholders. We could also one option is just sit back and observe, and see how these programs that are being rolled out work, and ask if city council wants to wait till we get some better data. So maybe, we go forward with a report of options and then pick one of them as this body's recommendation, but then discharge it. So that we could say, bring Dow in on April 17th and let them communicate directly with city council, but at least we could come in at is April 17th the workshop meeting? So maybe
Mr.
we
Chair.
would,
Andrea, the workshop meeting is on the 10th.
and so maybe SWAC comes in with our report on the 10th to just, give this advisory opinion, or report. And then if city council wants to, they can invite Dow and whatever department staff is gonna get assigned it to develop a program for 5,000 households, to come back on the 17th and update them.
David?
I knew you guys were sitting there, so I was hoping you'd speak up.
We're always sitting around waiting for work. Chairman and Commissioners, Dave Miles with the Public Works Department. I think to address a couple of points, we wouldn't be necessarily talking about offloading work because the Public Works Department does have a seat on SWAC, so we're interested parties, we're interested department in helping the issue forward. I think that we can certainly provide some information, and if the board sees fit, if the commission sees fit to make a recommendation that we provide information back to the entire group, whether that's council and SWAC together or independently, we can probably help affect a little bit of a faster change in this topic. With that, I don't know that it's necessary to make an immediate change because, as people have said, we don't have the answer yet. We have assumptions of what the answer might be, but we can work behind the scenes to compile that information certainly, and report back to either both SWAC and the council independently together, whatever works best. So we're happy to help. I think it's rational to have us help because we do have a voice on the commission as well. So just for your information and consideration, I'd give you that.
I appreciate that input. Members of the commission, additional comments?
I have one more comment, and that is, talk about a time frame of waiting it out. I don't know if the council or the city council is probably going to get a lot of feedback if we're waiting too far behind all the other cities. I think we'd probably want to take advantage of Public Works and get kind of ahead of it so that when put to task in a public hearing, we can honestly say that, hey, we're trying to get on board. And this seems reasonable to me also that 5,000 be a minimum because part of what you're doing is trying to get a feel for the material you collect from a different demographic. We're not assuming that Meridian is the same as the city of Boise in all things. So I would think that they would want a little bit bigger test bed for a city our size. So that seems fair to me that they ask for a higher number of minimum participants if they're going to judge what the total city might be. And I guess my final comment is I prefer the idea that we charge ourselves. I think if we have a pilot and I have to get my checkbook out, I might be more willing to not just set the bags on the shelf. I'm going to be a little bit more engaged, hopefully. Then we don't have to try to come up with money as much. So those are my 2 cents.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman.
Andrea, so you made a comment that you wanted SWAC to make a recommendation. And I've heard so many comments today. I don't know that you guys are even in a place that you're ready to make a recommendation, but something has to come out of this meeting to get to council by the 10th. So I don't know if an actual recommendation is necessary. I mean, I don't know, maybe it is, or just more of a briefing of the options, unless you all feel like you're in a place that you are all on the same page and you feel like you have a strong recommendation. I guess my main concern is we really value you and all of you and your time, and we really try to go along with recommendations. And I don't feel like I could even make a recommendation right now. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be so much more conversation had at the council level about all of the different options. I just don't know that you would be serving yourselves well or serving the program well by making a recommendation. Because it is such a confusing, multifaceted subject.
Mr. Chair, I agree with those comments. I think we're hamstrung because we haven't gotten an official response back from Dow, but I also think that's an easy out for this commission. I think if we don't give the council the opportunity to give guidance either to this commission or Public Works to submit an application for the grant, let's say, for, you know, that the window's opening, that could be an opportunity lost that maybe council would have wanted to pursue. We don't know. So sooner we can bring something, and I would say it should be at the workshop on April 10th. I would say it's more like an advisory update, and yet as part of that, I am getting the sense, I know I agree with it too, that if Dow's option for Meridian is 5,000 households, that it makes sense to see if we have 5,000 households willing to spend the money to participate. It's not a lot of that much money. It gets to be a lot of money when you times it by thousands of homes, and that's the problem. So I could work with Rochelle and maybe Steve and Public Works to put together, if this is the will, an advisory report of where we're at in our research of this program, and hopefully before the 10th we would have heard from Dow, so we could include that. And then if you want to make a motion of which way you'd want to, could, you know, see it going, if it's 5,000 households, you know, obviously the city could subsidize, or we could raise rates somehow, or, you know, people could pay for it. And we would, I'm getting several commissioners, including myself, who'd be interested in having that latter, the last choice, be our recommendation. Maybe then on the 10th we get guidance back, and it's either thumbs up for 5,000 households, or thumbs up for the applying for the grant application and see if we get it or not. I mean, I don't know what City Council will decide. I agree with Councilwoman that it's going to be a big discussion because we've already heard the range of opinions from the electeds, from you know recycling and cover and you know at all costs to pay to play. And so where we're leaning today is pay to play for 5,000 households if there is that amount of interest in Meridian for this program.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman.
So I do believe that the 10th is the right day to do that as more of an advisory report without a call to action, without really maybe a huge conversation, just kind of like here are some things, more informational. We're going to bring this back on a future City Council agenda, because I think if we can get Dow here on the 17th to get more information to the council. So I guess it kind of depends. you could go all the way on the 10th if Dow can't be here on the 17th. But if Dow can be here on the 17th, I think that would be very beneficial to the council to be able to ask them questions directly. And then either a decision could be made that night, or it could still be added to the agenda on the 24th.
So I feel like we've already heard Dow's presentation here at SWAC. And I think we could summarize what was presented to us on February 1st to City Council on the 10th. I don't know, I mean, by then, hopefully, we will have gotten their commitment to 5,000 households. Maybe we could ask them for the confirmation that $8 would cover the cost. So I don't know that waiting to the 17th is going to give council that much more information. I think SWAC is ready to give the information we've received.
Mr. Chair, I would kind of echo Andrea's comments from earlier and kind of listening to the conversation. SWAC could say, we're interested in pursuing a pilot program of this type, but it appears that Dow is going to require a minimum of 5,000 households at that cost and that level of complexity. It's really beyond the capacity of SWAC to implement it, and we'd like to hand it off to Public Works to continue researching and gathering information.
And reporting directly with City Council.
The way to go is to have the residents pay to play, because you'll get the best picture of participation that way, for among other reasons, and it becomes manageable for the city. So we kind of, what you were saying earlier, basically we've done all we can, but the program has gotten a little larger than our capacity to implement it. Is that a motion?
Members of the commission, is there further comment or a motion?
Well, I think we're going to move in the motion. I think it is to bring forward an advisory report regarding the Dow Orange Bag program to City Council. So an update, summarizing what we learned on February 1st from their presentation, and the hopefully formal response to our proposal that it's now going to have to be 5,000 houses. And I think we can agree that it's not affordable for the Community Recycling Fund, so an alternative funding source would have to be found. So that's part of the motion. As to what's going to be in the advisory report. And then I don't know if we want to make a specific program recommendation or not for the funding of the 5,000 households, and who should work on that project.
I think part of the presentation to City Council, if we're saying this is what we've learned so far, and in order for it to move forward as a program, it does need to be transitioned from a commission level to a staff level. And we could ask for their guidance at that time. If City Council is interested in it and thinks that the residents will be interested in it, then at that point it does get transferred over to staff level for the continuation of moving forward. The surveys, the staff interest, the signing up,
Agreed.
Okay, as chair.
Make a stab at the motion, Carrie.
Well,
I guess I would make a motion that we present to City Council on April 10th the update, the information that we have gleaned already from Dow and the program, where we are in the process, and that we would seek advice or guidance and even approval to taking it to the next level, assigning it to the Public Works Department, the Environmental Division, for further process and program creation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and I'm not going to repeat the motion at this point. It's been moved and seconded, if you don't mind for me, for the purposes of what we're doing here, that a report be given to council to update them on the program on April 10th with all the details that were mentioned. And seconded. Further discussion. And Dave, I think you have discussion.
Just one question. Could we, if that motion were to go through, does it make sense to have SWAC ask and confirm with Dow a response be received in a timely manner, since you were the board that made the request, so that we can then, as staff, begin to see that information flow?
That makes sense.
Let me take a second here and first say I'm very comfortable going ahead and implementing this motion as made. I would be very happy to do that. I do not feel it is necessary for us to have the formal response from Dow, since we have a verbal indication of what the response will be. I feel I could make that presentation. It will be much stronger if we have the written response from Dow, but I think we need to get back in front of council soon because of the fact that this is such a major issue. And even expressing on the 10th that we have heard that we will be requested to bump up to 5,000 participants is good enough. I think it's timely to go ahead and get back in front of council to advise them of what we're doing. So having said that, getting back to this, there is a motion and a second. Is there further comments on the motion? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Thank you. As mentioned, I will work with Andrea and with Rochelle and with David, and we will put that report together, and hopefully Dow will get us a formal
I
response.
just sent them an email saying chop chop, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just one more thing. I think that it's really imperative, because nobody seems to remember the information on the, for the grants. And what I remember is they are issuing a couple more $5,000 grants this year. They will have another round of $25,000 grants, which won't close until October, and you can't get started until January next year. So those amounts and dates, I think, are really critical to have when you come to council.
My memory coincides with yours, but I am comfortable with that. We will go ahead and talk with Mr. Piper and make sure that that is what he said.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair, April 3rd is next week, the window's going to open, and all of that will be specified, spelled out. So I think we just wait till then, and we'll get that information before our presentation.
And I think to distinguish between the two, that is the Keep America Beautiful grants. They are, what I remember him saying was there would be 4 $25,000 grants that, and he's speaking for the Keep America Beautiful grants. So indeed, seeing the official opening would go ahead and clarify all that. But he was saying that he had in his budget, he thought, the possibility to extend some $5,000 grants.
That's correct. I remember that too.
So again, we can confirm all that. I think it is appropriate to confirm all that. So.
Which would hopefully, if that $5,000 would come off the $40,000, like if it's 5,000 households times 8 is 40,000, minus 5 is 35, that maybe, we can then be assured it's going to be $8 or whatever would help. Maybe we could lower the household cost. I don't know. So we'll figure that out. Yeah.
That's my math also. I guess to go ahead and express that, once Reynolds is retooled to be able to produce the 13-gallon orange bags, and they start their processing, what has been expressed to me is then they're going to be producing 12,000 to 20,000 bags per week. And they go ahead and that's why they need, it sounds like 6 to 8 weeks in order to go ahead and finish their run. And then as they complete their runs, they're shipping to Boise. So then whatever bags Garden City, Eagle, and Meridian participate at, that would be added to the run if everything is in agreement and such. So basically, it's talking about maybe another week of the run to go ahead and produce some more. But so yes, I would tend to say then our portion of the run is still a couple of months off, but we'll need a lot of facts confirmed from Dow before we present. Additional comments on the subject? Thank you. We will move on to new business. Item 6A, the recycling program options and analysis. Very specifically, I believe it's been forwarded to you, a letter that Mayor Tammy received from Republic Services on March 9th, identifying some options for the recycling situation. And let's see. I'm not sure there's much more I can go ahead and do to preface this particular material. I think I will go ahead and hand it over to Rochelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to hand it right over to Dave Fisher, who will be presenting. Thank you.
Welcome, Dave.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commission. Yeah, we were attended a, is that a Compass meeting where all the mayors come together?
The Treasure Valley Partnership.
Treasure Valley Partnership.
Where the mayors meet.
Yes, and made a presentation there, and out of that, we had several mayors, including your mayor, ask us to come forward with different options. And so that was the where this letter came from. And we were visiting with different all the different cities we serve in the valley. As you are aware, last October is really when we saw a change in the market. And since October, we're now, I was just thinking, into March will be 6 months. And so we're now, we've subsidized the recycling program in the valley over $1 million since October of last year. So what we're asking is our community partners to look at that, give us some relief from that, and that's where this letter came from. So really 3 options that we saw, and obviously cities can make their own decisions, but if you maintain the current program, $1.25 per month per household, taking out the paper would be 90 cents because I think we all realize that even if we tell people don't put paper in there, you're still going to get paper. And so we're hoping to negate the issue somewhat, but we still think we're going to see paper even if we tell people don't put paper in there. And then third option is to suspend recycling through the whole municipality for a time until the markets change. We would suggest in that case that the cart for recycling stays at the home, and we see what happens over the next several months, and then it would be easy to reinitiate curbside recycling at a time when the market is more favorable, if that would be the city's choice. So that's the 3 options that we're visiting with people about. City of Boise, we feel like made a decision a couple of weeks ago to maintain their current program. and stay with everything we have, including adding the energy bag. This week, Garden City had a public forum. It was, I thought, well-attended for Garden City. And interesting, what came out of that, they kind of did a poll by raising your hands on the three options, and the option of paying $1.25 and maintaining their current program was overwhelmingly supported. Then they had people get up and talk, and it was mostly just questions that they had about the current situation. But in the end, the city council voted to maintain their current program. They do need to come back and resolve how they want to pay for that. The mayor had said that they do have substantial money in their solid waste fund, so they may just cover it that way for a time, or they'll decide if they need to go back to the citizens and get a rate adjustment to do that. So that's something they've got to do yet, but the decision to keep with their current program was voted on and passed, I guess that was Monday night. So that's the update that we have. The markets are not better. The Western Recycling is selling everything or moving all material. We are paying per ton to get rid of paper. I have asked them, and they said they would comply, that I get certification from them and from their vendors that they're selling it to, that it's being, for the most part, recycled. So they do, I think these other vendors do some sorting and cleaning up the material when it gets there, but the substantial part of that is being recycled. And so we felt like it was important to our communities that they know that we're going through all this effort and expending all this money, that the material is actually getting recycled. And if it's not, that we know that and can then make adjustments or corrections or decide what we want to do at that point. But they said they would do that, and they're working on that right now.
Thank you. I would state, just as we now wander into a conversation about this subject, Meridian is unique in the Treasure Valley in that we have some agreements with our franchisee on services that are supposed to be rendered and finances that are associated with it. And I think I could go ahead and say that these may become franchisee agreement issues or contractual issues. And as a result of that, we may need to defer to staff to go ahead and finish this up. Having said that, members of the commission, do you have any comments or questions for Dave on the proposal?
Mr. Chair, I just had a question on your comments, actually. You said that Boise elected to maintain its current program. Are they increasing rates for citizens, or how are they?
Not in fiscal 2018. They too have a solid waste fund. And so I think their analysis was that they need to do rate increases in 2019, but nothing which would be this October. So, but for the rest of 2018, that they have sufficient money in their solid waste fund to do what they want.
Mr. Chairman? Dave, aren't we already doing the first one, modifying the Meridian recycling program? Didn't we already start that?
The three
With those materials that are 1s and 2s, tin, aluminum, cardboard, didn't we already start that?
Chairman and members of the commission, yes, that's the current program.
Right, but
Yeah.
you've got it as the 3,
The only,
4.
Right,
yeah.
right,
In addition to dropping to 3% plastics, this would also drop.
right. So it'd only be,
Yeah.
it would only be cardboard and dry food boxes.
And not the paper, okay, I didn't
Right.
even miss the paper.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add one thing, it's, we did commit to coming back and reevaluating rates like in a year, saying if markets change and, you know, if we see something different come up. So that is part of our commitment. And also, we are working really hard to find domestic markets and local markets. So we have like plastic fence posts we're looking at, and working with Hamilton, which is a local paper molding company, to maybe take some paper and make egg crates and apple crates and, you know, apple or fruit inserts and things like that. So this by no means means that we're letting off the gas pedal. We're still looking for domestic, reasonable solutions here locally regardless of what choices are made today.
Commissioner?
I did have a question. Other than the just get rid of it altogether, all the options are rate increase. What if we, because we're collecting less, if we're actually saving less, setting less aside, if we reduce the dates of collection instead of biweekly and went monthly? I mean, if you're only throwing 3 juice boxes or 3 juice bug jugs in your bin, it's going to take more time to fill it up. Is there a net cost if we reduce the dates of collection? What can we do to help this program without saying, you're throwing less away, but we're going to take more money from you? I mean, there's got to be a way to come to a net zero. And none of those.
Well,
that
the
hasn't been kind
third
of tossed
option
out
was
there.
to suspend the program, and then that's we're looking at $1 reduction if we suspend the program.
Mr. Chair, but I think what Carrie's asking is if people are putting less in the container, do you need to have that container picked up every other week? Or could it go to a once-a-month collection? In which case, what would be the impact?
Chairman and members of the commission, I don't know that we've calculated that, and I would want to default back to actually to the public comment, because people now are saying that they want more service rather than less. So that would be my concern, is that the public would I think they would have a concern with that. But that would be interesting to hear from them, but I don't know the answer to that. But just from the anecdotal information we get from our customers, that they don't want less service, is probably more service that they're interested in.
Mr. Chair, I think what Carrie's point is, though, it's the service that's available. In other words, why, if we're putting less in the containers, so a 95-gallon recycling container is half full, why should people have to pay more to have that picked up? Shouldn't the collection frequency drop accordingly so that that container is full? That just makes sense, I think, is your point.
That's my point.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, I also think too that one thing that we haven't really mentioned is the increase. Part of the change in rate is the increase in disposal on the trash side. So we do, paper's heavy, and if that's not going in the blue cart, it still has to be accounted for on the disposal side, and the gray cart, on the green cart. So it's a disposal piece for us on the other side, even if it's not being recycled. Even if we decrease the frequency, we're still gonna have additional costs on the disposal side.
Mr. Chair,
Is there a clarification? Which option are you talking about we'd be collecting
I'm talking
less?
about a whole, well, in any of them, if we're right now, like status quo, we have the mixed paper. Yet, and now again, we're saying either put less in the can or status quo. If you go status quo, just don't pick up my can as much. If we put even less in it, you don't need to collect it either way. It just seems like to say more service, provide more service, but yet we want you to put less in. We're not getting more service. I don't know if I'm explaining it right. It just seems
Chairman,
like if we're putting less in the recycle bin, you don't need to pick it up every 2 weeks because it's not full. It's nowhere close to being full. Why waste the gas, the staff time, and everything else to hit my house when my cart is nowhere close to being full? And then I have to pay $1.25 extra for what's in there.
So, Mr. Chair, Carrie, like at this point, with the changes that have been made so far with removing the number 3 to number 7 plastic, do we know that the carts aren't full? I mean, do we have a sense of? Yeah, well,
There's 7's only 1% of what we pick up.
yeah, like, I mean, I remember from Conrad's demonstration, the number 3 to number 7 didn't have a lot of volume, right? But if you pull the paper out and hypothetically, you'd have a lot less volume in the can, so you'd pick it up once a month instead of, so then the rate increase might be 5 cents instead of 90 cents, right?
Or none at all.
Or none at all, right?
So the
But we don't-
$1.25 keeps the current program. You wouldn't see a decrease in volume in your cart. It
Right.
keeps exactly what you have in your cart, for $1.25.
But if we did the option 1,
Option 1 and said no paper, it's 90 cents. And we say option 1A, no paper, once a month collection.
what would that pencil out to be?
What
So
would that be?
I think this commission wants that calculation made and brought back. Would be,
Recognizing,
Let me,
sorry, Andre, recognizing, just one final comment.
Yeah, can I-
That with
if I
the
can-
change on the numbers 3 to number 7, the residents were unhappy with that change. So now when you say no paper, but no rate increase, residents may still not be comfortable with that.
Commissioner Larson, I think here in Meridian, we're trying, since when we were made aware of the problem in the plastics, to do what's right to get to the most pure stream that has revenue value. Okay, so Meridian went to just 1s and 2s in the container as of January 1. When I look at the options, and after reading the article in the paper today, that mixed paper is trash. And there is concerns that it's at other landfills, so or sitting. My thought is that Meridian SWAC should consider taking the same view we took with plastic and say, if cardboard has the value, we want to get to that. If it's smoothboard as well, we want to get to that. Because we care about getting a more pure stream that has some revenue value. That's based on our contract, that if we can get to some revenue back, we get 80% of it to fund our community recycling fund. So this has been Meridian's way. And I think we've been consistent with that so far. But I think what happens when we look at the 90-cent increase option, it really means there's less in the container. And so a 1A, I like that, Commissioner Larson, 1A option would be reduced frequency of collection, and how would that pencil out? Would we need to do a rate increase or consider a rate increase or not?
Mr. Chairman and Dave, I know I keep interrupting him. Dave's probably like, Rochelle, what are you doing? But one thing that we haven't brought up, which maybe it was in there, is Western Recycling's made it really clear this is an expensive material to move the paper. They've also said if we pull the paper out, our processing costs per ton go up because our fixed costs don't change. So our processing costs went up this last month again, and then they've told us that they will go up again, because they need a certain number of tons to keep their line moving. So even though we're sort of straddling a rough spot because the paper's expensive to move, and if we don't take it in, then our cost per ton goes up for processing. So that's part of it too.
And Chairman and members of the commission, I think we took into the consideration of leaving the cardboard in with the junk mail type paper coming out. But I'll go back to my comment. I mean, even just because we've asked people to do that, I think we're still going to get a significant amount of paper. And when we do, that goes over the line and that gets processed. So it's very expensive trash at that point. So my expectation is even if we ask people not to put the paper in there, we're still not going to get 100% compliance. And so what happens is right now we're about 12% trash. If then paper becomes trash in Meridian, then that rate's going to, over 30%. I bet it's over 30% trash then. Because then all the paper that can be recycled then becomes trash. And it becomes very expensive trash.
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Dave, so I I'm looking at the first quarter FY 2018 report that Republic Services has presented to Meridian. And we are nearing the end of March, and I think it's really important that we would get the second quarter data to consider and weigh in as part of our analysis here. Because when we look at, the finance department looked at the numbers that were provided for the first quarter of FY18, and we took the $1.25 status quo rate, and when we times that by the number of households that were reported in your report by 12 months, that would yield a $481,545. But when we looked at the first quarter net cost for processing our recyclables, that figure, so that's for 3 months, is negative $73,191. And when finance multiplied that number by 4 quarters, it only came to $292,764, which leaves a difference of $188,781 in excess revenue. And so finance's question is, can you explain why there would be that big of a difference based on first quarter numbers? So now we're nearing the end of second quarter, so that's why it becomes very important to weigh in on that, because I'm assuming that prices went down, but maybe not, and maybe this is a guesstimate, I don't know, but it's a significant difference or excess revenue when you plug the numbers in that have been given to us. So I just wanted to mention that and ask that you come back with, or if you can, a reason. What data did you rely on to develop the $1.25 rate option, the 90-cent rate option, and plugging in Meridian's dollars, why there appears to be a large difference?
Certainly, I can do that. When the original Meridian curbside recycling program was put together, I'm anticipating that some of the cost was offset by commodity value. And so when we not only are not getting the commodity value, but we're also paying for it, that has an impact too. So we can take a look at that and certainly do that. So I think getting us back to zero is not what we're trying to do. Like I say, and I'm talking across the valley, we're over $1 million subsidizing this, and we've been subsidizing the program for about 3 years, kind of off and on. So what we're doing is by doing these things, we're trying to get back to where the basis for the initiation of these programs is back in place. Okay. So it's certainly getting to zero is not
right.
Just the answer that in our mind.
So,
and that we anticipate that, it's what we don't want to do is come back and say things are worse, we need another dime. And it just keeps, going on. The $1.25, we're anticipating things not getting better and maybe getting worse. And we can certainly, you've done some numbers there, so we can talk about that, but that's the basis behind that.
Mr. Chair, I have another question for Dave. In Meridian, as you are aware, has an annual rate review process. And after the CPI adjustment comes out at the end of June, we begin, Republic begins the process, working with staff, ultimately bringing their report, your report in front of SWAC to consider, and then it moves forward to City Council, and if necessary, public process, public hearing, publication, all of that has to happen before the new rate schedule can be approved. In the summer of 2015, in preparation for FY 2016, the staff and Republic Services had months of wrestling with the first market downturn of China's 2013 green fence or green operation, whatever it was called. In that FY 2015 cycle, out of Meridian's recycling, the revenue funding model included HHW expense. And on both the residential recycling side of net cost of processing as well as HHW, Republic Services was in the red. And Republic Services came to staff to bring forward a report that SWAC reviewed that ended up pulling out HHW. So at that point, the net costs for, so it was dealt with as part of the annual rate review cycle. And at that point, residential recycling, the net cost was $64,000 negative. And the HHW was like negative 70-some thousand dollars. And, you know, it was vetted, researched, you know, and in the end, it decided to remove HHW, and it was a 24-cent per household increase per month starting in FY16. I thought that worked really well. I think I would like to know if that could be done, if bringing this discussion, allowing the city staff, SWAC, to ask questions, because we have questions, want more information. It could be there are some contractual concerns, there's some program concerns. You know, I think it needs more vetting than the time we've been given. And my question is, would you consider bringing this into what Meridian's normal process is and deal with it in the rate review, annual rate review process? For example, in the Republic Services annual rate adjustment report in the summer of 2015, the discussion about HHW was thoroughly explained. You know, Republic Services was asking to have it removed and explained why and the costs and whatnot, and that was able to be considered and acted upon in due course. In this situation, it appears as though the net cost of the residential recycling program has gotten to a point that you're really asking, similar to the HHW here in Meridian, that that cost, the processing cost, be shifted to households. It would be a new fee. It needs public process because it has never been on our rate schedule. Collection, yes, that's paid by the households, over $1 million a year for the collecting recycling. But the net cost, the processing cost has always been borne by the franchisee. Whether it's an upturn or a downturn here in Meridian, the franchisee has contracted, has agreed upon paying 100% of the net cost for processing and splitting 20/80 any net revenue. So this represents a change in our contract and raises questions as to why, if we're here now, we've been here before with Republic Services bearing significant amounts of money and yet taking it properly through the annual rate review process. So here we're just like a few months out, and it's appropriate timing for staff, Republic Services, SWAC, to be considering all these issues. But would Republic Services consider us removing kind of the time crunch that we have to pick an option by the end of April, which couldn't even be accomplished here in Meridian, given that it would be a new fee and has to go through public process. We couldn't get it done. So could we agree to handle this through the annual rate review cycle, and everybody take a deep breath and ask the questions we need to ask, give Republic Services the time to do whatever other calculations or program considerations we might want to think of doing here in Meridian, and having that be discussed and handled in due course in the summer months.
Chairman and members of the commission, certainly that is, you know, Every contractual situation is a conversation about that. We would prefer not to because we're bearing a significant burden right now. And we've asked for relief from our cities. We are looking at $2.7 million this year. And so obviously that's a concern. I guess that's, the upside of one of the things of doing business with a large company is we can kind of sometimes deal with that for a time, where a small vendor would be a little tougher for them to do that. So we're just respectfully asking the city if we can move forward on a quicker time frame. At some point, we start considering the material that we're picking up as disposal, because we're having to pay to dispose of it. And obviously this is nothing that anybody anticipated, particularly in my 30 years in this business. This feels way different of every other upturn and downturn. And I've dealt with this for years and years and years, but this is the world has changed, and so we're asking people. Obviously, it's the city's decision, but we're asking for the city, or all our cities, to give us some relief in a kind of an out of cycle situation, because we feel like this is not normal. This is not normal business. This is not normal market conditions from anything we've ever seen before. So.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Pogue, I agree with Dave that we are always, processing costs are our responsibility. They've always been. Like Dave had said, this disposal piece is something that's exactly what it is. It's a cost beyond the processing that we pay. The processing is one fee, and then this is a whole nother layer of really it's to make sure that the material is recycled. So we throw it in the disposal bucket in our costs scenario. So just because that's where it has to land, it's not processing. It's beyond that. It's the disposal piece on the backside.
Mr. Chair, but I don't think that's what your letter says. And that's the greater clarity that we're asking for.
Sure, and we can write that.
Mr. Chair.
Just speaking on for myself.
Dave.
Councilwoman.
Dave, sorry. That's okay. So I guess my question for you is, are you having the same problem across the country? You guys are a big company and you have a lot of different places, and to me this seems like the only winner is Western, and we have to pay more if we recycle the paper, and we pay if we don't recycle the paper. So places where you own the MRF, or Republic owns a MRF, are your citizens getting a rate hike there as well?
Yes. Every market is different, and every contract is different. But in some markets, they're disposing of material. I don't know what they're doing in Oregon, but they were doing that earlier. The Oregon...
doesn't seem like Oregon.
I don't know the name of the Department of Environment, but they authorized recycling companies to throw the paper away. Right now, and it's been a couple of weeks, but we had 2,500 bales of paper sitting on the dock in Seattle with no ships to put them on. So yes, we're going all across the country looking for relief, and just helping people understand that we want it to be sustainable, but it's not sustainable under the current what's happening right now.
Andrea, I believe you also had a question.
Well, I guess you had alluded to the contract between Republic Services and Western. What's the status of that contract to deliver Meridian residential recyclables to Western? Is that contract under review? Has it been updated? Did Republic give any consideration regarding it and its impact on your options you're presenting to Meridian?
Certainly. We've looked at multiple options. We looked at bulk loading here and taking it to another MRF. We've looked at MRFs in Utah. We've looked at MRFs in Washington, Oregon, and the way it stands if we want to process the materials in the way that we have been, the lowest cost option is to do it locally here with Western Recycling. Everything else is significantly more expensive. Yes, we've looked.
I have another question. Have you engaged with Western Recycling to fix their processing fee for any period of time so that these options actually are sustainable if cities would do the $1.25 or the 90 cents? In other words, I believe March 1, you received the rate hike in the processing fee to be charged by Western. Is that correct?
We received a letter. We have not responded back to that yet. I'm going to. I know the city of Boise asked Western to become very transparent on what their cost structure is. And so we are working through that process.
And this
And
body
the City of
actually
Meridian do the
has,
same? Okay,
we've done the
yep,
same,
yep.
and if we could, and I think
Yep.
June 1
So
is
we're
the
going-
target date for that information, which would dovetail into our annual rate review
Right.
cycle. We could get that information and actually consider it.
So our concerns, like I say, we're now over $1 million that we've spent dealing with this issue, and we're looking for relief.
So, Mr. Chair, that is a lot of money, and yet you can Google anything these days, and in Republic's investor relations presentation just this month, it was reported that Republic recycling collection and processing revenue was approximately $1.2 billion. So, you know, I think we have to look at the whole picture here. I know when I looked back at the 2017 figures, Western reported covering their ROI and getting $1 profit per ton, less than they would have wanted, but that's what they received. Republic for Meridian reported a 7,000 plus revenue. The CRFP received back plus 6,000. So to me, you know, 2017 ended up being a good year for everybody. We're sustaining a downturn. Dave, in post-green fence in 2013, I heard and we were discussing the exact same thing. The climate has changed, it's different, you know, it's expensive. And then, you know, we had a good year. Not as much as we all have had in the past, but it was still a good year. Markets are going to come back. I mean, we have Western Recycling and business banking on that, as are all other MRF owners, like Republic Services as well. They're finding other markets. That's what's going to happen. And so to me, this is just another temporary down cycle. And maybe, you know, maybe it's steeper than it was, and so it hurts more, and maybe this is an appropriate discussion in some fashion to figure out. And that's what I think is appropriate for us to do as partners in the normal course of our process. But I just think it's important for us to appreciate the billions that are available to be made in this recycling industry. That's why people are in it. Even though it is, you know, the right thing to do, it is still a revenue generator. Yes, costs are going up, but I think it's a temporary down cycle. How to weather it is the question.
Commissioners, any further questions or comments?
I did have a question, Mr. Chair. If, God forbid we go that direction, but if the recycling is suspended, the proposal is a reduction of $1. Can you tell me how you got to that $1? Because I'm just trying to figure out, because our recycling rates are included in the trash rate. The customer pays one rate, but the cart itself is 54 cents. So that would mean if we're only reducing $1, that means the recycle program equates to 46 cents, and that can't be right. It has to be more valuable than that. So I know you had mentioned that the the cart would stay on site. So what would we expect the customer to do with that cart other than pay rent for something that they're not gonna use?
Chairman, and they still have to get rid of the material that they have right now. So some of those things that have been going into the recycling cart, well, all of them then would be going to the landfill. So we would see an increase in the volume of the disposal. And so we'd have to so we wouldn't park all the trucks that are doing recycling right now. We would have to kind of re-rack the routes, and some of those trucks that are doing recycling now would be picking up trash because our volume, same amount of volume that we're picking up today, we would have to be picking up then.
So essentially, you would let them use the recycling cart as a trash can?
Oh, certainly.
Absolutely.
Or they could put the recycling in there and stay in that habit, but then one truck would pick up both carts. But it would take more routes to run Meridian than we're using now for trash. So some of those recycling would have to be put back onto trash routes.
How many trucks collect recycling in Meridian? Isn't it 3?
I have to look. I think I just sent that to David, so I know what, I think I have that. No, it's more than 3. Trucks, how many trucks collect recycling?
I don't have that one off the top of my head, but I would think that maybe
get that for
about a third of the truck, we probably park a third of the trucks that are doing recycling now.
Dave?
Mr. Chairman. Dave. Didn't Western Recycling increase their prices to you about a year ago?
Yes, they did.
And they're asking for another price increase now?
They are.
And it's for processing?
Yes. Yep.
And the explanation was that with the amount of material decreasing, the processing price per ton is going up?
I can't substantiate what their logic is. That's part of this program where I'm going to go through and try to substantiate what that logic is.
Much per ton is a requested increase, recent one?
Like $7 or $8 a ton, about 10%.
Was that about what it was a year ago?
Yep.
A 10% increase a year ago?
Yep.
A 10% increase this year? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, when this body did its study in 2015 and 16, the processing fee was $71 per ton. And now, as of March 1, it's 87 something per ton.
Thank you.
I guess I have one question you can't answer, but I'll pose it anyway. So there's a lot of discussion about the market will come back, but this is kind of different in that there's this massive stop in overseas market. So our hope is that domestically, companies that couldn't compete with that sort of competition may step up and find uses for those materials domestically. But we don't know whether that is true or whether that's a 10-year, 5-year out, right? So nobody knows.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Nelson, just in the paper today, though, they're finding, the Western reported finding outlets in India, Malaysia, Philippines. I mean, other countries are stepping in the gap that China has created.
I think my point was,
and they're currently full now.
My point is, I have a day job, so I don't get a chance to read all the articles out there. So I'm just relying on Western Recycling and Republic Services and staff to do some due diligence for us and tell me whether I can read numbers all day long, but it's not what I do for a living. I need other people to vet some of those numbers. And I don't know, we had a lot of discussion, but I'm not sure what I'm supposed to process today.
Mr. Chair.
Carrie?
Dave, I did have another question. As far as the financial impact, and yes, you've been subsidizing for the Treasure Valley. We've heard time and time again that our contracts are different than Boise's and Garden City. I mean, everybody's contract is slightly different. The proposal, the options that we're hearing, it sounds like the same options were provided to Boise, Garden City, and all that. So if we're all different, why are we getting the same options? And do you have a way of saying, okay, this was the impact for Meridian, this is the impact for Garden City, this is the impact for Boise, so that we can all see really how Treasure Valley-wide we can focus in on our own areas. Because yes, I understand we're all concerned about what's going on in Boise, we're all concerned about what's going on in Garden City, but this commission has to focus on Meridian residents. So if we're all getting the same option, are we really taking care of our own residents, or are we being asked to help cover the entire Treasure Valley? Again, like we did with household hazardous waste, because that's what we're doing in Meridian already.
Chairman and members of the commission. Yeah, and when we say each city's different, that's how they fund their, you know, that really has nothing to do with
well, even our
the rate structure to us, or but we looked at really delivering a very similar, I mean, curbside recycling in the valley is very similar for every community. It's not, you know, it's same commodities, same type of container, for the most part, same type of truck. So that's very, very similar. And so that's when we looked at it. You know, obviously you apply the rate per household to the different number of households, you're going to see a different number. But we felt like that was a accurate number for delivering the service.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, if I can add to that, one of the options that we have on there, we would love to do that. So one of the options is we'd like to change it like a fuel recovery fee monthly. We would love to say, here's the baseline, and this month, this many tons, that this was the deficit. We would love to have your bills adjust and just show, so the public's engaged. They can see exactly how much, maybe it's $1.40 one month, maybe it's 20 cents another month. We would, if that's the decision you'd love to go, we would love to go there, because that makes it easier for us. We're trying to, like Andrea said, okay, where are the prices? Here was first quarter. Well, it got worse second quarter. And we don't have any idea where that's going to project out. But we would love to treat it like a fuel recovery fee. We would love to say, this is exactly, your routes are independent. We could say, this is exactly how many tons Meridian brought in. This is exactly what the deficit was, divided by the number of households. I mean, we would love to do that. Right now, we projected out what a year would look like, and we said we'd revisit it. Just like with hazardous waste, we had 4 holidays, so we came back and said, we weren't open these Mondays, so here's a rebate check for those Mondays. We would love to do the same with this and say, here was our target. We were off. Here's the check back. But we would, if you guys are willing to do that, we would love to do that and just say monthly. There's usually some pushback, but that's definitely an option. And that was listed out as an option, as we can treat that monthly so you can see exactly what Meridian's doing. And that stands. We would love to do that.
Yeah, and we suggested that to the mayors when we met in Middleton.
Oh, yeah, we did say that. Mayor Tammy said no thanks.
Mayor Tammy said, no, I don't want that.
That's what I would say.
Yeah,
Well,
but that was
included in the letter.
Being the utility billing manager, that's what I would say also is no thanks.
She said, we brought that up to her. We said, we'd love to do each community separately, and there was pushback from the billing department saying that's really complicated, and and they get a lot of negative customer feedback. But that is an option, absolutely.
Yeah, we would prefer it to be like a fuel recovery fee and adjust it up and down each month. That's.
Andrea, you had another comment, question?
I guess in your comment that curbside programs are the same, what's different is the contractual agreements for recycling funding on the processing side. And that is what I think is worthy of a particular focus here in Meridian. What would be the impact if this year, whether before or after the rate adjustment for FY19 occurs, to shift the processing fee to the households, what would be the impact of that revenue agreement that has been in existence now? It's a change in contract. And what's your view on the impact of it? What would you do when the revenues, the markets turn and there's revenues? Would that become 100% turned over to Meridian? I mean, if households are bearing 100% of the liability, that would make sense, but to me, that has to be negotiated. Are you viewing it differently? What's your perspective?
Chairman and members of the commission, yeah, our preference would be to be fluctuated up and down based on the market, just like a fuel recovery fee. But our feedback from the mayors was they didn't want to necessarily see that. But certainly, yeah, if the markets turn, we'd do that evaluation. We would come back to you and say, markets have turned, it's now a positive revenue stream, and we can change the rate. Certainly, we would do that.
So is it correct that this is representative of a major shift from what we've had in the past, that the cost of recycling is to be borne by the households and not by Republic Services?
In my perspective, it's not a major shift. What the major shift was when these programs were developed, there was an anticipated revenue stream that was going to help offset some of the cost, and that for the last 6 months and for the foreseeable future that I can see, that's not available anymore. So what used to be a revenue stream is now a cost. So if I was going to a city today and saying, if you're interested in curbside recycling, here's the cost of the collection, here's the cost of the processing, here's the cost of getting rid of the material, and so that would be borne in the rate to the household. I mean, Mayor Tammy in the city council meeting said, recycling has always cost money. Now it's going to cost more.
Correct.
And
that's what my point is that because we've never had recycling split out from trash. If this is shifting the processing cost to the households, then I think as part of the annual review cycle, what Republic Services should be coming forward to Meridian with is the base rate, what it is to collect right now. We would break them out, do recycling separate from all the trash, and we would say collection, here's the cost of that per household, and processing, here's the cost of that, and make it transparent as to what's really happening so that the discussion can match and the analysis can occur internally as to contract impact, program impact, all the other impacts that would have to be reviewed before this body could make any kind of substantive recommendation to council regarding that proposal.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add, this is going back to something Commissioner Polk said, and you said, Public Services reported I can't remember what the exact revenue amount was last year, and I guess I just want to make sure that everyone on the commission understands it's not the commodity value that's making the money. We closed on a huge deal where we bought a string of, 27 or 40 MRFs around the country. It was a huge purchase that we had lined up right before the market fell. And so those are processing costs. Those are operating costs. So we have I wouldn't say equivalent to Western Recycling, but we have MRFs all around the country that we bought another company, and they charge a per ton fee for processing. And we closed on that last year. And so that's not commodity revenue coming out from Republic. Those are companies that we bought that operate by processing recyclables, just to make sure that was clear. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Are there any cities that you bill yourselves, that Republic bills directly? Not to the city, but to households?
The customers?
Certainly.
Customers.
Yes, we do. We have about 10,000 customers in Canyon County.
Canyon County.
Yeah, and those that have recycling, their rate went up $1.25.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're processing that increase.
Okay, members of the commission, I want to really thank you for your focus on this issue. But, you know, we're usually scheduled for an hour. We've now run 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I need a sense from the committee as to the commission. Are you willing to continue, or if there's any particular issues?
I would just, on behalf of the finance department, say that we need more information from our public services regarding the dollar rate. What was the data relied upon to create them? What's the gap? Or at least explain why there isn't a gap after second quarter. So I know the finance department wanted SWAC to consider that need for additional information. I think, speaking on behalf of the legal department, there's a need for additional study of the contractual issues involved. I think finance wants to bring this into the annual rate review process. So I would just offer those comments.
Mr. Chair.
Oh.
I apologize, but I do have to leave.
I do too, and I'm sorry.
I can appreciate that. Believe me, I don't think we made any indication that this meeting would go this long. So,
Sorry.
commissioners, additional comments?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll just echo that. I'm empathetic with the public situation. Recycling is certainly a mess, and you know, even if new markets open up, there's just so much crap, right? That there's just not, you know, I'm not sure there's a great solution for that. So in addition to understanding the contractual piece and the financial piece from Republic, also the Western piece as well, I think is you know, and I'm still relatively new here, and I don't pretend to understand the full picture. It's very complicated, but year over year, 10% increases in their cost. I'd like to understand how that happened, you know, and how these things come together. I'm really a bit confused. I think for the city of Meridian to go forward with a change in the program when effectively Boise and Garden City have said no change, right? They're going to take all the same stuff and they're not going to charge the residents anything additional. They're going to eat it. So we're going to walk right into a buzzsaw if we in Meridian say, oh, we're going to do something different, either take less material or charge more money or both. There's going to be a lot of pushback from citizens, so we really have to understand fully what's going on and what it means for our citizens.
Mr. Chair, so Commissioner Larson, when you say eat it, that's taxpayer dollars eating it.
Well, it's coming out of the money they already have
It'll be
in their
property
fund.
tax increases to cover it eventually.
Right, no, exactly.
And that's not getting reported on as this whole discussion has occurred.
I'm sorry for not choosing better language. What I mean is that, you know, like in a similar way to the Orange Bag program, from the citizen perspective, it was a clean, simple solution that didn't cost the citizen, in their minds, didn't cost them anything. Yes, the city used taxpayer money, $500,000 or so, to get that program going, and eventually they will charge citizens in much the same way. They're going to use the money they already have on hand to cover the costs and help Republic, and eventually the citizens are going to have to pay more. But for right now, for the citizen that doesn't have a deep understanding of the issues, nothing's changed. So it's complicated, and it's hard for the citizen to understand that, especially when they're not fully engaged. And I think the folks that came out to the Garden City meeting are highly engaged, highly interested individuals. That is not a representative sample of the community at all. For people willing to pay for it, people that get it, you know, it's hard to use that as a gauge. So at any rate, in sum, I just need more information.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to ask Dave, to me, a critical component of really making a difference would be to engage all of the stakeholders into some regional memorandum of agreement or some understanding of the processing fee charged by the MRF, that it would be on for example, with Republic Services, it's an annual basis that you come in and ask for your rate adjustment, right? Is there any discussion at a regional level? Because you're going from city to city and counties in the Treasure Valley, but there is this issue that makes it very difficult for anybody to really calculate the cost, because we have this private MRF in business and you know, affecting rate changes, you know, according to their own business model. Is there any discussion trying to get this stabilized to some quarterly processing fee review by some regional board like the Ada SWAC group, or put some kind of sideboards on it so that as a city looks at your options, we have any sense of, at least as to the MRF processing component of it, that it's going to stay stable for any period of time? Because I don't think that exists right now.
Chairman, I think that's part of what we're working on, is getting that information so it becomes more transparent, and that's what we're going to be doing the next couple of months. You need to understand that, you know, processing cost has been part of your cost forever. The difference was it was processing cost plus freight came up with a number, and the value of the commodity was greater than those two numbers. Well, that's not the case anymore, and that's the big change. The big change is there's been a little bit of, there's been some change in the processing cost. There's been change in the trucking too. I mean, we pay $35 a ton for trucking on average, and where we were getting $200 for cardboard a couple of years ago, we're now getting nothing, or we're paying. Mixed paper was very similar to that, and that, so it's really what's changed is the value of what we're taking to the market, more than processing cost, more than trucking. It's really the value of what we're taking to the market is what's changed significantly. So I mean, we can work with Western, and we're going to. We want to get really hard numbers. But even if that comes back and we're saying, you know what, really would be more comfortable at $75 a ton, that doesn't solve the problem. We're still, that's a portion of it, but it's a very small portion of the cost issue that we're seeing right now. It's the value of the commodity that's driving the issue, not that Western's going to charge another 10 or something. So that's my only comment there. And if Western isn't here, then when we go to Utah or we go to Oregon, it just gets more expensive. So I think it's very appropriate to understand what their cost structure is, and vet that, and making sure that what we're paying for is appropriate, and that they're mining out what we want them to mine out. And but that's not going to change the world market, and that's what's really driving this issue. So I hope you understand that.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
need to leave.
Okay. Discussing where we're at this particular point, as has been identified in here, after the recycling program was initiated with source separating back in 1999, there was a $2.10 charge added to Meridian residents' bill. As you say, we pay for recycling, have paid, will pay. In our 2015 analysis of the situation, we calculated that that number had risen to $337. And as you say, those were really collection costs. They were nothing else. And then above and beyond that, going to the uniqueness of Meridian, as you identify for processing, transportation, and delivery to the mills, netting with the commodity costs, there was obviously going to be some number. So above and beyond our collection costs, which had gone beyond $1 million for the city in 2015, there was another number, and over the course of the years, that was our community recycling fund. That was the inflows to it. All of this is the skeleton of our franchise agreement. That's all recorded in all of that. And I guess that's kind of one of the things that I think is confounding us. I think what we're hearing is that you're recommending that the community recycling fund is dead and will be dead forever. And if that is true, then we need to go ahead and reflect that in the franchise agreement. And if that's the case, then like I say, I think we've gone as far as we can with the commission, that this is going to end up having to go to staff and have them have some direct conversations with you about, you know, do we keep the franchise agreement? And if we do, does it modify? And are there terms that are acceptable between the city and Republic and such? And I have gone well beyond my authority at this particular point. But again, now we're at 2 hours and 30 minutes. Members of the commission, rein me in or go ahead and comment on that.
Mr. Chair, I would agree that at this point in time, I think there does need to be some direct conversations with legal and with finance. I mean, there's still a page and a half of questions that I know finance is going to want answers to, and it's going to take data. They're going to want reports. They're going to want, how did we calculate to this? What were you looking at when you did that? So just a yes or no at the podium. I think they're going to want the direct conversations.
Mr. Chair, I've stated as much. I guess what I'm wondering is, do we put this topic as the main topic for the April 28th agenda, with the direction being in the interim period for staff and Republic Services and finance and legal Republic Services to start reviewing this in truly what is an annual rate review analysis. I think we need a more detailed report from Republic Services than this letter. This letter didn't even mention disposal costs. It referenced process and down market, processing rates and down markets. So if in that next month that could be accomplished, questions posed to Republic Services, discussions, culminating in either coming back and having a continued discussion on April 28th, I'd be in support of that, given all the questions that have been identified.
With that, so who would report back to us on the next meeting? Would it be Republic Services or staff in conjunction with?
It could be both, finance, legal, Public Services, maybe Western. Well, maybe Republic Services will have the information back from Western by that April 28th meeting, maybe not 27th, whatever it is, maybe not. I don't think having a meeting in a week, a special SWAC meeting in a week, will accomplish what has to happen here. City is asking for more data and basis for these options in a different framework. The framework has to become under the franchise agreement, framed as a change in modification to the franchise agreement, to the rate schedule. I mean, there's multiple complexities involved here that I think SWAC can direct the city staff in finance and legal to pursue this further and report back. And either that'll come through Carrie and me here on the commission or through our CFO. I can't say because I know they want more data, more information, and we need to see what that says. And maybe it clears the air and maybe it just raises, questions for SWAC to consider to end up reporting to city council about.
Commission members, motion, or if not, then the chair will go ahead and continue to see if I can get myself hung. Seeing nothing here, I will go ahead and request, if there's no objection from the commission, I would request that this be picked up by Meridian staff as appropriate to go ahead and work directly with Republic to go ahead and get the issues that we have nailed down, with the expectation that where we're at in the April 25th meeting would be a recommendation from that discussion, either by Republic or by staff, that we can then act on. But if staff determines that this is something that can be taken directly, then we would understand that. It doesn't need to wait until the 25th for us to go ahead and act on your conclusions as the city sees fit.
Well, only comment, Mr. Chair, is what Councilwoman said. Our model relies heavily on the report and recommendation from this body on all things solid waste to City Council. So staff can do the analysis, do the review, just like when HHW was the issue. So that we vetted the contract, we vetted the dollars, the 24-cent per household increase, just like we're raising questions right now about where did the $1.25 come from. Staff can do that analysis and bring it back and report to SWAC for SWAC's consideration in evaluating that information with our program and what to do with the program. Meridian hasn't had a survey since 1999 when Steve Sedlacek did it regarding residential recycling. Yes, it's of interest in the community. There are people who are extremely wedded to recycling. There are others who not so much. Most people are like, okay, we'll participate to the extent that we participate. But I don't know whether we could do a survey in the short amount of time we've been given, but it might be something that SWAC would include in a recommendation to City Council. If we're taking this on as part of the annual rate review, for FY19, then there might be time to do that and bring it back as part of the consideration. I know Republic's expressing a need for a shorter decision time frame, but I don't know. I've expressed, my doubts that we could accomplish this any time quicker than the annual rate review cycle. So. No. So yes, you were on track, except that I think it needs to come back to SWAC. That's where I deviated.
Thank you. again, seeing how far I can get out on a limb. I suppose if you can handle this fairly quickly, if there is a need for a special meeting, then we'll go through the process for accomplishing that. But on the other hand, with the amount of information that needs to be resolved, at least at this particular point, I know you were looking at the end of April. Well, hopefully we can fit all this stuff in.
Certainly, if you'll provide us what questions you have, we'll get them answered and get right back to you.
Well, Steve, what I wrote down was that you request this be picked up by staff as appropriate to work with Republic Services to nail down the issues expressed here, with the goal being, and then it was the April 25th SWAC meeting. I would just say to bring a report back to SWAC for consideration and further discussion. I don't think, I think that's would be a lot to accomplish by then.
I'm going to fail on my duties as chairman, but I'm going to go ahead and consider that a motion.
Okay.
And that is to say, hopefully, all members of the commission understood the motion that was made. Okay. Next, I need a second. It's been moved and seconded that staff will pick up this issue, et cetera. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Nay. No.
You nayed?
I misspoke.
Voting with two hands.
I know.
Thank you. The motion passes. Thank you, staff, for going ahead and picking this up, because I do know that it's going to be quite a bit of work.
Mr. Chair, based on this late hour, I would move to continue the last item on the agenda to a further future agenda.
Thank you. And I note that too. So we will continue the contamination education outreach program. I'll work on the agenda being done. Again, as mentioned, our next meeting is scheduled for April 25th. We've also continued the quarterly report from before. So there are a number of items that we're continuing at this point. We acknowledge that and understand it. But as always, if there are subjects we have not picked up, please just communicate those to Andrea and I, and we'll get them into the agenda.
Mr. Chair, Cheryl did ask commissioners to volunteer for Recycle a Bicycle. I don't know if you want to send out a separate email to our commissioners and ask when you have a better idea of day and time, because I'll help, but yeah.
Yes, I would underline that, highlight it, and do a whole bunch of other things in terms of the fact that May 5th is certainly going to be very busy for us. We're going to be doing Trash and Treasure or Recycle a Bicycle. Please, if you're available, that's certainly helpful. Obviously, Sunday for Trash or Treasure, that's less of a conflict. But, and also, my memory is that we have an invitation for a volunteer lunch in April that was sent out by the clerk,
I didn't
believe.
get that because I'm not a volunteer. I don't know. For volunteer appreciation. Carrie, do you know anything about that? It's not the picture.
And I am in that now.
I'll follow up an email.
Yeah.
You wonderful.
If my memory is wrong, please accept my apology for having even mentioned it, but if it is right, I'm highlighting April 6th. Okay.
What's the volunteer luncheon here?
That's my memory, that it'll be over in the conference rooms or something like that.
I'll have the clerk send it out again.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's in my, anyway. we will get details back out to you to remind you of that, because again, we are weighing so heavily on you, and I really appreciate what you've done to be in here. And with that, all business being being brought up, I would declare this meeting adjourned at 20 minutes to 7.
Carrie?